In 1926, a wealthy Toronto lawyer died and left behind a will so strange, it turned an entire city into a baby-making competition. Women were tracked. Rumors of secret pregnancies spread like wildfire. Lawsuits were filed by families accusing each other of cheating. This is the true story of the most bizarre inheritance race in history, and almost nobody has ever heard of it. Meet Charles Vance Millar. A millionaire lawyer, financier, and, by every account, a man with a wicked sense of humor. Millar had no wife, no children, and no heirs. So when he died suddenly in 1926, he left behind a will that read less like a legal document and more like a prank aimed at the entire city of Toronto. He left shares in a horse racing track to men who despised gambling. He left a house to two lawyers who hated each other, forcing them to live together. But his final clause was the strangest of all. The clause, 1:145. Millar's will stated that the remainder of his massive fortune, hundreds of thousands of dollars, worth millions today, would go to whichever woman in Toronto gave birth to the most children in the 10 years following his death. At first, people thought it was a joke. Newspapers laughed it off. But the will was real, it was legal, and it was ironclad. And slowly, something strange started happening across the city. Word spread. Families realized this wasn't a joke, it was a fortune waiting to be claimed. Some women who were already pregnant kept having children, tracking every birth like a scoreboard. Neighbors began quietly counting how many kids lived in each house down the street. The press nicknamed it the Great Stork Derby, and newspapers ran updates the way they'd cover a horse race, literally listing which mothers were in the lead. But it wasn't just excitement. It got ugly fast. Some families accused others of counting stillborn children or children from outside marriages to inflate their numbers. Lawyers got involved. The case even reached Canada's Supreme Court, as officials tried to decide whether this strange contest was even legally enforceable. By 1936, when the 10 years were up, 4 women had each given birth to 9 children during the contest period and were declared joint winners. They split the fortune, each receiving roughly what would be over $1 million today. But here's the detail almost nobody talks about: several other women had actually given birth to more children during that decade. They were disqualified, some for having children out of wedlock, others because of technicalities buried deep in Millar's original will. The very same man who wrote a strange joke of a will had, without meaning to, created a legal fight over which children counted and which didn't. Charles Millar never married. He never had kids of his own. And yet, from beyond the grave, he was directly responsible for the birth of dozens of children across Toronto, all chasing a fortune built on his final, dark joke. To this day, historians still argue about whether Millar meant it as satire on Canada's strict birth control laws at the time, or simply as one last prank from a man who spent his whole life testing what people would do for money. If you want more real stories this strange, buried in the corners of history that nobody talks about, subscribe, because this is only the beginning. Production notes. Visuals: AI generate 1920s, Toronto street scenes, newspaper close-ups, staged, not real mastheads to avoid copyright, courtroom imagery, silhouettes of families, avoid depicting real named individuals' likenesses since no photos are being claimed as authentic. Pacing: slow down on the twist, 3:45 to 4:15, this is the emotional peak. Voice style: documentary/mystery tone, similar to true crime narration, measured, slightly ominous. Fact check before publishing, verify names, dates, and dollar figures against at least 2 independent historical sources before finalizing. Since this script was drafted from general historical knowledge and details, exact names of winners, precise dollar amounts, should be confirmed.